Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Brev. Welcome to another MLB The Show 20 video. Today I'm going to be evaluating all of the new Finest cards out of the Finest pack and that you can get from collections. You guys loved the last video where I ranked all 30 of the Finest that you can acquire in Team Affinity. Today I'm not going to be so much ranking them as just talking about what I think about the card. If you guys are new to my channel, please subscribe for more MLB The Show 20 content. Would be greatly appreciated. Drop a like on the video, helps me out a ton. And if you missed the last video on the Team Affinity Finest cards, the link to that is in the description below. Should be noted that some of these cards are pretty good, some of these cards are pretty average, and some of these cards are pretty bad, so I may spend not a lot of time on some cards and a decent chunk of time on other cards. Also, none of these Finest cards that you can get out of the pack or the collection are prestigiable, so keep that in mind. And all these cards are really cheap right now. I think the most expensive card in this pack is going for $20K on the market, so if you're looking to add any of these guys, now's a good time. They're all really cheap, very easy to acquire. Gonna start off with the rare round guys and Ronald Acuna Jr. I want to do Gerrit Cole and Dinelson Lamet together, so we're starting off with Acuna. A little disappointing on the contact, however most people that play this game play it on All-Star, which is below 700 rating, so it's not really going to affect you much if you're down there, the low contact. The low contact really starts to come into play on Hall of Fame and especially on Legend. I don't know if this card's usable on Legend. On Hall of Fame, it's going to be kind of tough with the low contact, but the 125 power versus right, you're going to face righties more. That's going to play up really well. Acuna's swing is pretty good, and defensively, he's basically Eric Davis, but a little slower, so that's good. He's going to play diamond defense in center field. If you move him to left or right field, he will drop down to gold defense, so that's something to keep in mind. I would definitely try to keep this guy in center field if you can, but the 93 fielding, 93 reaction, and 91 speed is going to play very well in center field. So even if this guy doesn't hit the best for you, he's going to play really good defense in center, so I am a fan of that, and he does bring maxed out power against righties, which is always a plus. Is he a top 10 outfielder in the game right now? Probably not, but a super fun card, definitely usable, especially Hall of Fame or lower. Next in rare round is Gerrit Cole. Some of y'all might not like my evaluation of this card, but historically Gerrit Cole cards have been pretty bad. I don't anticipate this one being much better. His per-nines are lower than last year, and his pitch repertoire is basically the same. If you didn't know, Gerrit Cole got a Finest last year. That was a collection reward. That was a better card than this, and for some reason he's just really easy to hit. His delivery is really easy to pick up as a hitter. It doesn't seem like his velocity really gets on you, and he really struggles with speed differential with throwing the very hard slider that can get up to 92. The changeup is a little slower than the slider, which I like on this card. But in general, I wouldn't expect a whole lot out of this Gerrit Cole card, to be honest. He is very easy to read, like I said, and his pitch repertoire usually just doesn't play very well on the game. Now, I have to be careful because Cole and Lamet have pretty much the exact same pitch repertoire, and I actually think Lamet could be good, so bear with me while I try to explain the differences between the cards. First of all, on paper, Lamet much better per nines. Lamet actually has the same exact per nines as Trevor Bauer, except for he's -1 in K per nine. So that's insane. Obviously, these per nines for a starter are crazy. But I think Lamet's pitch repertoire, on top of the better per nines, is much better than Cole's as well. First of all, his slider is his primary pitch, which means he is going to have better control over it than Gerrit Cole is going to have over his slider. You're going to be able to throw it more often, more consistently. Also, Lamet hits 101 on his four-seam, whereas Cole only hits 100. And just looking at the card, the difference in speeds between four-seam and slider is 11 miles per hour for Lamet, and it is only 8 miles an hour for Gerrit Cole. So Lamet has better speed differential between his best pitch, which is going to be his slider, and his four-seam, which can get up to 101. If you throw the slider low in the zone with low effort, and if you throw the fastball high in the zone with high effort, his four-seam can go as high as 101, his slider can go as low as 86. So there's a lot of speed differential potential there. Also, the two-seam is nice. I probably wouldn't throw it much. It's pretty close to the velocity of the four-seam, though. And then the one thing that maybe scares me a little bit about Lamet is the changeup at 88 miles an hour. That is a very hard changeup. For me personally, I love pitching with guys like this because it allows me to tunnel high. You can throw a lot of high sliders, high changeups, and so that would be my best advice using this card, is to throw off speed high in the zone, probably more than you would, because it tunnels really well with the 101 fastball. And then a sneaky pitch for Lamet, the curveball can get up to 86 miles an hour, which is very good, a very hard curveball. You can definitely jam lefties with that inside, so For me, I feel like I'm going to have success with this card just because of the way I pitch and how I like to sequence. I love pitching up. I love pitching inside. You're definitely going to have to do both of that to have success with this card. But on paper, looks pretty good to me, honestly. When I sat down to evaluate these cards, I wasn't expecting a lot from Lamet, but the more I look at it, the more I like it. I will say on All-Star he may struggle because he basically only has 2 speeds, and pitch speed, pitch velocity doesn't mean as much on All-Star, and the per 9s aren't going to mean as much on All-Star as well. So maybe this is a Hall of Fame legend pitcher, and that's usually where I play, so maybe that's why I like him so much, but I really do like this Lamet card, honestly. Alright, now let's move on to the base tier, guys. Gonna get a couple of pitchers out of the way immediately. This Tony Gonzalez is terrible. Basically starter Kirby Yates, please never use this card. Tops out at 97. Splitter and slider, same speed and only 7 miles an hour slower than his fastball. Card's really bad. Same goes for Kevin Gausman, although Gausman is a little better because he throws much harder and his off speed is slower. But again, only 4 pitches, 2 of them are fastballs. He's got splitter, slider, same speed. A lot of speed differential for Gausman's, especially compared to Gonzalez, but I just don't think you can go 6 innings with a pitch repertoire like this because there's only so much sequencing you can do with basically 4-seam splitter slider. So a little disappointed because Gausman I'm a fan of, but I just don't think the card's very good. Continuing with the starting pitching, I think this Luis Castillo card is actually pretty sneaky good. Unfortunately, his per 9s are a little low, but this guy actually has the exact same pitch repertoire as Future Stars Sixto Sanchez, and the difference is his circle change is his primary, and he throws a circle change very hard, which again, I usually like high changeups because they tunnel well. This changeup's going to go up to 87 miles an hour. You can do a lot with a primary circle change that is thrown this hard. You can literally throw it inside to righties and jam them sometimes. And circle change tunnels incredibly well with the sinker. This guy also has outlier on his sinker, so his sinker and 4-seam are both going to be right around 100 miles an hour, and then the hard slider that can get up to 90. So I don't know how well this guy's going to do going deep into a game. That was one of the issues I had with Sixto Sanchez when I used him, is people kind of figured him out after 3 or 4 innings, but initially this guy's going to throw nasty stuff. I really think if you still want to try the strategy of maybe even using like a starter out of the bullpen late in the game, this guy's definitely up there on the list for nasty cards that people won't be expecting. Very good pitch repertoire. I just don't know how much, again, you can sequence deep into games with it. But I do like the card in general. I think he's pretty good. And now let's talk about the last 2 starting pitchers in this pack, both of whom I'm actually pretty excited to talk about. They're kind of sleepers. First of all, the meta has really shifted to right-handed pitching. A lot of these new Finest cards are right-handed. A lot of the new Finest cards hit righties better, so we're kind of just in this right-handed meta, and it gives an opportunity for these 2 lefties to kind of sneak in. I don't know how good they'll be. They're definitely not top 5, but top 20, it's possible, especially given the state of the meta. First one is Ryu from the Blue Jays. Very unique card in that he's a straight changeup primary. We'll see how that plays. I haven't used it much, especially from a starting pitcher, but this is a really cool card. He also has the grand trio of 4-seam sinker cutter and pretty good speed differential between those 3. The slow curve I would try to stay away from, especially using the changeup as the primary. But this could be a very interesting card, you know, pretty slow cutter. Reminds me a lot of Mark Burley, honestly, on paper, with a changeup primary instead, and I actually had decent success with Burley. This card has much better per 9s than Burley as well. 100 walks per 9 should bode well for locating that primary changeup. So kind of a sneaky card. I really can't tell you how good he is, but it's a good meta for him, and if you want to try him, I'd say give him a shot because I think he could be sneaky good. And finally, we have the pitcher I'm most excited about out of this Finest pack, which may confuse some of you guys, Marco Gonzalez. Piggybacking off a lot of what I said with Ryu, the right-handed meta bodes well for this Marco Gonzalez. There's going to be a lot of people in starting lineups right now that hit lefties worse, so this guy can kind of sneak in there. Again, don't know if he's top 10, probably not, but top 20, it's definitely possible. What this card brings to the table is a lot of finesse, a hard-breaking sinker, but he only throws at 89. He's got sinker cutter 4-seam again. He's got basically the same repertoire as Ryu, but this time he's got a primary sinker. And Gonzalez also brings 114 walks per 9 to the table. This guy walked basically nobody all year in real life, so I think this is really cool. He's also got a pretty annoying delivery to try to hit against. It's very like delayed, so I think the card is sneaky good. I think He's a nice change of pace. I think you can really throw some people off throwing this guy in ranked seasons, especially on All-Star difficulty, and that's what I want to stress. Ryu and Gonzalez on All-Star difficulty at this point in the year could really get it done, because per 9s don't really matter as much on All-Star, same with velocity not mattering as much. These guys can really induce a lot of weak contact. On pitching on All-Star, you're going to be able to locate very well, especially with Gonzalez and his 114 walks per 9. Sneaky pitchers for All-Star. I really am a fan. I'm going to be trying both of them. I'm not saying go out and bench Kluber for this guy. I'm just saying probably better than he looks on paper. Now let's talk about the two lefty relievers. First one, Drew Pomeranz, maxed out per 9s, but pretty poor control. I don't know how I feel about this card, honestly. You basically are forced to only throw 4-seam cutter, I feel, with this card. You can maybe weave in the 2-seam to try to miss some PCIs, but I wouldn't do it too often. I don't know, your opponent's PCI is going to be really small, but you're basically throwing 4-seam cutter the whole time. It's basically like Rob Dibble, but with less speed differential and not having outlier. I don't know, we'll see. Cautiously optimistic is how I would evaluate this card. He probably could be pretty good. Pomeranz has a pretty glitchy delivery as well, kind of hard to read. But we'll see. If you're just hanging 4-seams and cutters, those per 9s aren't going to help you out too much. And secondly, we have Brad Hand from the Indians. This card looks insane on paper. I've heard some people saying he's not that good because his delivery is hard to control, and he's been hanging his slider a lot. So we'll see what happens. I haven't used him yet, but on paper, this guy looks nuts. He's basically Andrew Miller that throws slower, but with a curveball and higher walks per 9, higher control. So I'm a big fan of slider primaries, especially from the left side coming out of the bullpen. He does have the sinker as well, again, very similar to Andrew Miller. So I don't know how to evaluate this card really either. On paper, like I said, looks incredible, but haven't heard good things so far. We'll have to use him and find out for ourselves, but for the price he is, like 20K, this is definitely a top tier lefty option in the game if you're on a budget. I mean, he's, like I said, on paper he looks incredible. And finally, let's run through the hitters. First off, Jose Iglesias, which was a better card than I thought he would be when I first looked at him. He's basically MVP Dustin Pedroia, and he's basically also Finest David Fletcher, but with worse arm strength. So I guess that speaks volumes as to how bad David Fletcher is, or maybe how good Jose Iglesias is. But max contact, not enough power though for this meta. I think I can't imagine a lot of people using this card. 66 arm at shortstop is pretty rough, and playing him at second or third is going to lower his defense to gold instead of diamond. So I don't really know what to do with this card. Maybe he comes off the bench for you if you're on a budget, but probably not making a whole lot of teams. But very interesting card, really not that far behind Fletcher, like I said. So pretty good attributes for just being a throwaway in this pack, pretty much. Next, Jake Cronenworth. This card's a platoon bat at best. He will have gold defense at second base and shortstop and all of his secondaries as well with 82 speed. But those attributes versus lefties are rough. 84 contact, 60 power. You're going to have to platoon this guy. Maybe you run a Cronenworth Mondesi platoon. But I just don't see much that this guy brings to the table that someone like Joe Morgan does not. Even if you are going to platoon, I'd probably just roll with Joe Morgan instead at second base. Guess it depends on where you're playing this guy, if you're playing him at shortstop or something. But not really a fan. Reminds me a lot of the Rookie of the Year Corey Seager card, and I don't know a whole lot about Cronenworth's swing, so I have to assume this card is not that great. Maybe you can let me know in the comments. Next is Verdugo. Pretty sneaky good card at the plate as well. 115 contact, 90 power is going to play really well, and 124 contact for his left is amazing. Unfortunately, his power drops down to 67. And also, unfortunately, he only has gold defense in the outfield with 63 speed, so I feel like this card's not going to play great defense for you, and again, maybe just a platoon bat. Going to have basically no power versus lefties. Don't really see a spot for this guy in most people's lineups. Whit Merrifield, again, another cool card. This one because of his insane positional versatility. He can play everywhere but catcher and shortstop, and he's going to play there with gold defense. His fielding will drop to 81 in his secondary, so you can play him basically wherever with gold. 98-87 versus righties is pretty good. Falls off a bit versus lefties, but remember, you're going to be facing righties more. One cool thing about Whit as well is he does have the two-handed slap swing, kind of like Kenny Lofton, Corey Seager, guys like that. That is a very popular swing in the game, so this card could play above his attributes for sure. Pretty sneaky card again to have on your bench maybe just to fill in for somebody, but again, positions are so deep this point in the year, who really knows. Next is Eloy, who is probably just a bench bat. However, his defensive attributes aren't that far behind Juan Soto. I know this guy's not Juan Soto. I'm not making this comparison. Don't roast me in the comments. But the defense isn't as bad as it seems compared to other cards. That's the point I'm making. But it's still going to be pretty rough compared to like guys with diamond defense. Although 108, 103 is probably not good enough to justify having this guy in your starting lineup, but maybe as a cheap pinch hitter, definitely an option. Brandon Belt is a card I want to spend a little bit of time on because he's basically budget Freddie Freeman if you can get him against a right-handed pitcher, which I think is really good for a card that's selling for $15K right now. He has the same diamond defense at first base, and he's only -9 power versus righties. He also has a very good swing in the game. Brandon Belt crushes the ball. Obviously, you're going to have to platoon him. You're going to have to bring someone in to face a lefty because 60 contact versus left is just not going to cut it, basically at any difficulty at this point in the year. But Brandon Belt, truly, honestly, not that far behind Freddie Freeman. As crazy as that sounds, really all he's missing is a little bit of speed and a bunch of contact versus left. So very, very good budget card that I will definitely be trying out. And finally, we have Dom Smith, who had an incredible year IRL. First base defense, not a huge deal, so the Silver Shield won't be too big a deal over there, I don't think. And this card is going to hit both sides better than he probably looks. Obviously, he's going to hit righties well. Again, not that far behind Freeman, just -2 contact and -10 power. But he also has 100 contact versus left and 83 power versus left, which is going to play fine. Dom Smith, again, another guy that has a really good swing. So I like this card. Again, I'm not trying to tell you to bench Babe Ruth for him, but I'm just trying to give you guys perspective on how good these cards are. I think this card's pretty good. And finally, we have the 5 finest flashbacks that you can get through the Finest collection. First one is Pat Neshek, which you get from collecting 5 Finest players. I am so glad they brought this card back, man. This is maybe the most fun card in the entire set. I don't think people are going to realize how annoying this guy is to face until he starts popping up a ton in the next couple weeks. If you guys don't know Pat Neshek, he basically throws like 1/4 delivery. It's like a little bit in between sidearm and submarine. Card was a glitch in 16 and 17. People used him all the time. He was notorious for being hard to hit, and they brought this flashback back, which I think is super cool, especially since Neshek is probably retiring after this year. This may be the last year we get a cool Neshek card, so I'm going to be using him. Very glitchy delivery, like I said. Slider sits mid-80s, sinker is low 90s, and the circle change is just an absolute floater. It's going to get as low as 68. He was notorious for getting people to flail at his circle change. Really, really fun card. And they boosted his per nines a lot from when he was in 17. 113 walks per nine is actually nuts. That's only one less than Marco Gonzalez, who I already talked about. He's going to be able to put any of these 3 pitches wherever he wants. He also fits a really cool niche in that there's not a lot of good finesse relievers right now. A lot of the good relievers in the game are power pitchers, so this is definitely a huge change of pace, a really cool card. I think you're going to be seeing a lot of him popping up in the next couple weeks. For collecting 10 finest players, you get this flashback 98 overall Luis Severino, again from MLB The Show 17. This card looks okay to good on paper for me. Decent pitch repertoire. Again, the off speed is hard, kind of like Lamet, so you're going to have to pitch up and inside a lot. But this card just doesn't excite me a whole lot, to be honest. Again, another pitcher that has a pretty generic delivery. The per 9's significantly lower than Lamet's, and the cutter 4-seam speed differential isn't fantastic. So I'll have to give this guy a couple goes, but I can't see him being too good, especially compared to other guys that are pretty similar pitch repertoires like Dinelson Lamet. Now we're getting into the juicy stuff. Flashback from last year, Finest Quinton Marte. I loved this card last year. I thought he was the best second baseman in the game at the end of the year. I thought he was better than Alomar, who had a better card last year than he does this year. This card was fantastic for me last year. Again, that's all I have to go off of. But Quinton Marte's swing is amazing. He does have lower power versus right. I always preach about you face righties more, but 84 is good enough, and his swing more than makes up for the lack of power. He's going to have silver defense at second or shortstop, which is probably where you want to play this guy. So the defense is going to be a little sketchy, but even for a bench bat or just like a utility man off the bench, this guy could be amazing. He's going to hit really well for you, I promise. Card was insane for me last year. Forgot to mention with Marte too that you get him for collecting 20 finest players. For collecting 25 finest players, you get this Nolan Arenado, which is from last year as well, which was kind of a weird card for me to use last year. Again, I'm just going off my evaluations from last year because these cards were from last year. Arenado was kind of weird. He played really well for me, but he played almost inverse of what he looks like on paper. He played way above his attributes at the plate. He was crushing everything, hitting a ton of home runs, and defensively, he really did not feel like a diamond defender. He was very slow-footed. He got bad animations at third. He usually didn't get auto dives to stay in his glove, stuff like that. So again, it's Nolan Arenado. People are going to use him. He's a lot of fun. But how good he'll be remains to be seen. Honestly, on paper, card looks great. Not that far behind Machado. So amazing flashback card for them to bring back, especially since the Rockies and Diamondbacks, going back to Cattell, don't have a lot of legends to go off of. So I really think they did a good job bringing those two specifically back. And finally, for collecting 30's finest players, you get this Francisco Lindor, who maybe is the most disappointing card out of the whole collection, to be honest with you guys. This card really suffers from the 85 contact versus right. It's going to play poorly on Hall of Fame and Legend. This guy's going to struggle at the plate versus righties on higher difficulties. That's the main knock against him. But remember, most people play on All-Star, and everything else about this card is amazing. He's a switch hitter, obviously. The swing is great. He hits lefties fine. Maxed out contact versus lefties. Diamond defense at any of his positions, and 99 fielding at shortstop, and 73 speed is more than fast enough to be good offensively and defensively. The one knock on this guy, again, is the contact versus right. I'll have to use him and see if he can get some home runs on PCI not touching the ball, stuff like that. Card could be very good. I don't remember a lot of how he performed in 18, especially since 18 was such a power meta. I can't imagine this guy would have played very well back then with only like 100 power. So we will see how he does. Just really disappointed about the contact versus right, but again, middle infield is a great opportunity to kind of platoon some guys, so that's an option for you as well. So that's going to do it for the video. I hope these card evaluations helped you guys make some decisions on who you're going to take out of these packs, or if you're going to add anyone to your squad. Again, friendly reminder to subscribe to the channel if you're new, and drop a like would be greatly appreciated. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, be sure to type in the comment section below, "Were you kidding me with these rankings?" Thanks so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.